Hello and welcome to Brian Lomax Movie Talk. Now, we're doing a show here tonight on my channel. It should be on Steve's channel, but we've had some trouble. Hang on.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I just tried to stop that happening, it still did, but hey-ho. Yeah, so we should be doing this show over on Steve's channel, but we're not due to some technical difficulties. This is the second part of a show that we started over on Steve's channel, in which we discuss the DC animated movies. But I'm going to pass over to Steve, who is going to basically do a proper introduction and lead from here on out. So, Steve, over to you, mate.
All right. Well, Brian, before I begin, first let me just say thank you for the last-minute rescue here. I did not anticipate the technical difficulties to happen, especially considering the fact that you are the young individual who taught me how to make live shows. So I'm not putting the blame on you at all. But how that happened, I will not know. But my goal, as soon as we go off the air tonight, at least before the third time we all get together again, I will sort out the issues and we won't have to deal with this one anymore. But yes, this is supposed to be on my channel. So hello, everybody. The Lawn Gnome is here. Pleasure to be with you guys once again. And welcome to the DC Animated Movie Live Show, Episode 2. Just in case you never came to this before, for this live show, welcome, of course. It's a pleasure to have you. And we started this a few months ago when we got the newest release from Warner Brothers and the DC Animated Universe, giving birth to their brand new, hopefully, series of movies in the Classics collection. That was when Batman: The Return of the Caped Crusaders came out, and that's when we do these live shows. So this second installment is for the welcoming of the newest film in the regular DCU animation library, and that, of course, is Justice League Dark. We will not be reviewing Justice League Dark today. That is for a future show. But what I really want to do right now is I want to welcome our second panelist who was supposed to join us the first time around. This is Melissa from the Bookish Babbler. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. It is a pleasure to have you here.
I am so excited because I'm a complete DC nerd. But yes, hi, I'm Melissa from over at the Bookish Babbler. And while I'm not like a film reviewer, YouTuber, I obviously, from my name, do mostly book stuff. I have just grown up loving DC comics and movies and TV shows my whole life. So yes.
Right. Well, we also thought that this was an important person to have join us because there aren't that many females on YouTube that actually do these kinds of discussions, because there's plenty of women out there that love comic books. They go see the movies in the theaters, and we felt it was time to get a little girl power in here and have a little bit of a perspective in a different direction, which I think is very important and healthy in the world that we're living in today. So, of course, we're going to be discussing what I like to call a second book. I divided all of these DC movies in their chronological order into a book, meaning a certain group for a certain theme that carries throughout. And the reason why I am going to be discussing these three specific films with these two people today is because they each had a small special feature on their special edition DVDs as well as their Blu-rays. And that was a short film called the DC Showcase, which is actually based on the comic book series DC Showcase, where a specific character that may not have enough to carry its own film or television series has a small amount of time to shine. And that, of course, led to, unfortunately, a first of its kind and, unfortunately, a last of its kind. We'll discuss that further on with a whole compilation of the three shorts that were attached to these three films, as well as a longer short, and we'll discuss that at the very end. But that's going to be this book. It's all because they're all linked to DC Showcase shorts. But before we go into each of these movies individually, I want to bring it back to Melissa one more time, because Brian got this question, but you didn't. We would like to know, I'm sure everybody would like to know, what got you to discover the Bruce Timm animated universe? Like, how old were you? What was the show that you first found? And what got you to continue your watching and your love for these movies and television shows?
It's actually a strangely like vivid memory that I have of the first time I saw the animated Batman. I was like 7 or 8, and they were playing them on television. I was over at my grandmother's, and I was there. It was Thanksgiving morning, and they were doing a marathon for some reason. And I just sat down and I watched them all, and I was addicted. I went home and I found the channel that was on at my house, and I just waited for them to do reruns of it, and that is what got me into it. And then I branched onto the films and all of the other stuff. So yes, that is really into it. And then comics came and all of that too.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So let's not hesitate and let's get right into the films. The first film, to me, is a very interesting one because of a certain backstory that not that many people know about. And that, of course, is Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. Now, as DC comic faithful, I'm sure that we can all agree that whenever the word crisis shows up in anything that is linked to DC, our ears just perk up and we want to know more as quickly as possible. So this is a movie that, of course, was based on the first Crisis or alternate universe crossover, basically exposing the world of DC to the multiverse with the Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate came into the DC comic world during the Silver Age of comics. That's how old these characters are. It's very interesting because not that many people know about it. But what's more interesting is the fact that this is actually the lost season of Justice League Unlimited. As Justice League Unlimited fans, we had that amazing conclusion to the Cadmus Project series with Epilogue, with Batman Beyond, which to me was one of the most beautiful things that Bruce Timm ever gave us. And they were ready to put the package together, put on the pretty bow, and that was it. But then the executives just knocked on their doors and said, hey guys, guess what? You got another season coming. What are you going to do for us? And the guys freaked out. They didn't know that this was going to happen. They thought that they were done. And so they said, let's just do a little bit of a fan favorite. Let's bring the Legion of Doom back. Let's bring every supervillain that we haven't animated into the show. And we, to some extent, I think we may have gotten one of the not so great endings to a great series because of this. But while that was happening, they made a third season, and Dwayne McDuffie, unfortunately, who's no longer with us, was the brainchild of this. It was a season that was going to air after the Legion of Doom series, and it was going to bridge the gap between Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And it was going to be featuring with the Crime Syndicate. But it never happened because after the last season of Justice League, the show got canceled. But so they still had this project waiting in the wings. And so they said, with these brand new direct-to-DVD movie projects coming out, let's make a movie. Let's do it. And so now we have Justice League, A Crisis on Two Earths. So let's get started. Let's start with Brian, because you really haven't been saying much in the program, and I think it's time to let you speak. I'd like to stop talking for a little bit, so tell me what your overall feelings were towards this film when it first was announced, and then, of course, we'll go to Melissa after that.
Well, I am a DC man, but when I say that, I mean, what I really mean is I'm a Batman.
Absolutely.
Man. And I came into comic books in the early 90s. So I came into Batman comic books in the early 90s, and I kind of stopped around the year 2000, and I definitely stopped as soon as Grant Morrison got his grubby little hands on the character. A lot of people praise Grant Morrison. I'm not one of those people. I think he trashed the character, quite frankly. And I've not really read comic books since then, to be honest. But I'm not really that knowledgeable on comic books before the period I've just talked about or after the period I've just talked about. But I'm definitely tuned into to anything on screen with regards to Batman. So for me, I gotta confess, I didn't actually know much about these Justice Lords with regards to their comic book origins. So for me, I was coming to this film almost as a fresh piece of entertainment without too many ties to other things. Like to me, the biggest influence on this that I could read into it was like Owlman seemed like someone straight out of Watchmen. You know, this film itself feels a bit like a kind of like it was kind of cribbed from Watchmen in some ways. Even the main villain in it, when you look at Owlman and his plan, it's a very, very kind of dark, twisted soul who does remind me a bit of some of the characters in Watchmen. But first time I saw this film, I instantly thought it was one of the best of the DC animated movies we'd had up till that point. Whether or not I thought that on this viewing, we'll find out. But who am I kidding? I still loved it. No, I still, yeah. I think that there are a few. I think when you come to something with a specific intention of criticizing it, so like knowing we were doing this show, I think you go into something with a bit more of a critical mindset. And sometimes that can be dangerous because you end up pulling apart something that you previously loved. And we will get to Superman, Batman, Apocalypse. But right now, Crisis on Two Earths, yeah, I went into it, you know, I started picking it apart in the way I do when I've got my critical head on. But despite the fact that I did pull a few things out that didn't quite work for me on this viewing, it's still a really great film. And I think a lot of that is down to the ending. I think it has a really solid ending. I think if you can end a film on a high, I think that really does an awful lot for me as a viewer. Whereas if you have a really great film and the last 20 minutes, half hour it just descends into just awfulness, then it completely ruins the experience for me. So yeah, on the whole, I think this was a really solid film throughout with a really great ending, which kind of elevates it even further for me. Would I give it a full 5 out of 5 score? Well, we'll find out when we get to the end. But
absolutely,
yeah.
Melissa, what do you think?
I personally love this movie. This is one that my brother watched, and he was like, "Oh, Melissa, here's one that we haven't watched." Because unfortunately, I'm not one of those people who goes chronologically with these things. I just watch them when I run across them. So I've seen this one many, many times, and I absolutely love it. And I loved it just as much in this viewing. I am going into this simply as a fangirl at this exact moment because I am a huge fan of really well animated, like very, very violent scenes. Like when the DC animated movies especially do that because they do it so well. I think this movie has some of the better moments of really capturing the intense darkness that DC sometimes can go into, which they haven't been doing as recently. I don't like as much recently. I think they've sort of tried to trail away from that. They're just now starting to get back to that. So rewatching this movie just made me remember how much I love how violent DC movies can be. That sounds awful. So obviously I loved it. And obviously it has some problems. I think some of the pacing's a little weird, especially in the beginning.
I agree.
But overall, as Brian said, the ending is really, really well done. Definitely elevates it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like when it comes to stories in the world of science fiction and fantasy, I have such a passion for alternate universes. I love the concept because it is every single day, you know, when I think about, you know, possibilities of reality and stuff like that, it's one of the few things scientifically that could actually be very, very real, because an alternate universe is based on the simple decisions that you make every day. You know, that's why it's so fascinating to me. But I enjoy this movie the most because of the fact that it has so much surprise attached to it. I think I had so much fun when the characters went into the alternate universe and you saw the villainous counterparts of all of the other famous heroes that are out there. I was like, oh, look, there's the evil Vixen, there's the evil Green Arrow, there's the evil Martian Manhunter, there's the good Joker, there's the good Lex Luthor. Like, it was just so cool to see all of these heroes and villains that completely turned on their sides. And also, there's so many other surprises that are thrown in there. Like, one of my personal favorite parts of the movie is when Superwoman's minions go into the Justice League's universe, and they start attacking the Watchtower. And then Batman says, yeah, I'm not outnumbered. And then boom, here are all of these other heroes that you did not anticipate showing up. And just like the banter that they have in that scene is just absolutely hilarious. I mean, I love the scene because I support Aquaman 100%. I love him. I really think that there's so much more to him than everybody gives him credit for. But I love that scene where he's fighting one of the made men, and Batman says, "Careful, Aquaman, they're stronger than you." And he goes, "That remains to be seen." He just smacks the guy like right across the Watchtower. I just love that. I think another thing that I love so much about it is the action sequences. I think that the action sequences are so well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the part where Flash just takes the evil elongator man and stretches him all throughout the headquarters of the Justice League on the other universe. I also love the fight between Batman and Superwoman. I mean, I just think that the dialogue that they have is just so well done, to a certain extent, a little bit sexual, which like really, like, you could cut the tension with a knife, which is absolutely great.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really appreciate the fact that, after a series of films that we got beforehand, I think after Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, like, we had a fun film, but it was a little bit of a so-so feeling when you finished it. But I think that Justice League Crisis on Two Earths brings it back up and takes it to a further level. And I mean, we'll go into some more details as we move on to discuss this movie, but that's what I liked about it. I loved the surprises. I loved the animation style for the action sequences as well. I think that those were two very big positives. And also, I did also appreciate some of the slower moments, like the Martian Manhunter story. I thought that was really a nice touch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing I will say, though, that I was feeling throughout this film was, oh man, I wish we had Kevin Conroy in this one.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah.
There's been a few. I mean, we get on tonight's show, we're getting three different Batmans.
Yes.
We do have Kevin Conroy coming up. We've got William Baldwin in this one, and an actor
we have Bruce Greenwood.
Bruce Greenwood, who I really like, and we'll get to him when we get to him. But yeah, of the three that we're discussing tonight, William Baldwin is definitely not my favourite. He's adequate for the role. I wouldn't say he was terrible, but it's just when you've heard, basically, Batman the Animated Series spoiled us. It really did.
Yeah.
When I hear anyone else doing the Joker, I'm like, oh man, for Mark Hamill, please. And it's the same with Batman. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill so cemented themselves in those roles that now when I see them animated, I can only hear their voices, or I long for their voices. And I really felt that with William Baldwin in this film. Thankfully, like I say, the script and the overall film itself is enough to rise above that. But man, how much better would this be with that voice?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely will agree with you, because that was going to be one of the next things that we were going to discuss. And of course, just in case people who are coming here for the first time, please don't be offended if there's spoilers. This is the only way that we could talk about these movies. I mean, hopefully the discussion that we have will entice you to get some of these movies and take them give them a look for yourself. But yeah, the voice cast is always essential. I mean, Andrea Romano, she just knows what she's doing. She always manages to get great voices. Although I will agree, in this movie, I felt that, you know, William Baldwin was one of the weaker Batmans that I had heard. I thought that his voice was, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought his voice was way too high-pitched and not dark enough. I thought that he had some good dialogue. I mean, come on.
I actually feel sorry I feel sorry for Andrea Romano. I really do, because her job is to cast. So as far as she's concerned, she has cast the ultimate Batman. And the fact that Kevin Conroy has the reputation he does is testament to her job as a casting director. So when Kevin Conroy leaves, she's then got this job of casting again. So it's like, all right, well, choice. Now I've got to find my second choice. So with each film, every time they get rid of an actor, her job is essentially finding the next one down from the last one she picked. So I really feel sorry for her in her role, but there you go.
I mean,
she does a good job.
Some of the other cast that we had, I mean, we're going to take a look at the Justice League cast members before we go into the Crime Syndicate. But what did you guys think of Mark Harmon, who obviously is a very famous actor right now, thanks to, I always get these mixed up. Is he on NCIS or is he on CSI? I always mix those two shows up.
It's NCIS, isn't it?
Thank you. I think that's the one,
I don't watch either of those shows, but I actually know him from West Wing, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. So.
Well, that's Aaron Sorkin for you.
Yeah.
No, I thought that he was. The thing about the Justice League themselves, I think that they didn't really get much of a speaking role. I really feel that this movie was all about the Crime Syndicate and the alternate universe. You know, we really didn't get much of Superman really developing. We didn't really get much of Wonder Woman developing. Flash had a couple of good one-liners. I think maybe it would have worked better if they would have kept the original cast, especially considering the fact that this was supposed to be a season of Justice League, but obviously it's not, especially when there's no John Stewart Green Lantern and you have Hal Jordan instead.
Yes.
But let's talk about those villains. In particular, Gina Torres as Superwoman, and of course the notorious James Woods as Owlman.
Yeah,
Melissa's got something to say. I can tell she's just itching to say something.
Go for it.
I love Gina Torres so much.
She's
so
awesome.
obviously, and obviously, as you said, the Superwoman and like Batman dynamic in the movie is easily one of my favorites. But yes, Gina Torres, I love her. I'm Firefly. So obviously, she's always one of my favorite parts about the film. I think she acted it very, very well, and she definitely is, for me, one of the highlights, whether that be actually just my overexcitement about loving her or her actual voice acting is probably more up to other people, but I absolutely adore her as Superwoman.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people may not know, all except for Jewel Staite, the entire cast of Firefly has lent their voice to the DCAU, which I think is wonderful. But you know, Gina Torres, we have seen her in so much as a good guy. I love it when people who are constantly cast as the hero get to be the bad guy, you know? Like when Tom Cruise got to be the bad guy in Collateral, or when John Travolta finally got to be the bad guy in Broken Arrow and Face Off. Like, you just see a whole different side to these characters. But while James Woods has voiced the villain and has played the villain so many times, I will say this, as Owlman, he scared me to death. Not simply because of the fact that he didn't play the typical full-blown villain like they do in The Incredibles, where you caught me monologuing. No. This guy was just evil incarnate, blunt, and to the point. Like, some of those lines where he goes like, what good is a bomb if you don't detonate it? Like, that's terrifying when you think about it. Like, this guy is ready with his finger on the button, and he wants to press it really, really badly. And Gina Torres as Superwoman, as Owlman's lover, I think that's what makes them both even more amazing how she is into him, but he doesn't show her any kind of emotion whatsoever, yet she is still attached to the hip to this guy, which blows my mind, you know?
Yeah, he's the ultimate nihilist, and
Yeah.
I love James Woods in this because basically his outlook is that actually mankind is a blight, existence is pointless, so we may as well just not bother existing. That's literally the whole sum of his thoughts, and I love the comeback that Batman gives him towards the end. I had to write it down because I can never remember quotes. But it's the moment when Batman, just before he takes him out, he says, we both looked into the abyss. The only difference is that when the abyss looked back, you blinked. And then that's when he takes him down. But then Owlman's response is, it doesn't matter. And it's like, he's a man of conviction, because like in the moment of his death, he resorts to his widely held belief that we've seen throughout the film, which is that actually I don't matter. Nothing here matters. So why should I give a toss if you're going to kill me? All right, I lost. I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, but hey ho, that's that. You know, so I love that response from him at the end. Like you say, no big speech, no big "I'll get you next time" or anything like that. It's just acceptance, absolute acceptance that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, and he even has some really good comedic one-liners. Like, I love the scene where he gives when he's talking about I can't remember the name of the device that allows them to cross into dimensions. He goes, apparently they left out the other one on their battle station in space. Would you be so kind as to jump over to the next universe and pick it up for me? Like, I just like lines like that. I think it's really funny. What did you guys think of Chris Noth as Lex Luthor? For me, it was very interesting to see a good Lex Luthor in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked him. I thought the voice worked well. The thing with me is I don't tend to notice the voices too much when they're good, but I do notice them quite a bit when they're not working.
Right.
And it's just and when you only get like a 72-minute film, it's not something that sticks in the mind as, say, you know, a TV series. Like if we'd have got one episode of Batman the Animated Series with Mark Hamill's Joker, would he still be as remembered today as he is? But because he got to carry that role over, you know, like 4 seasons of TV plus, and then the extra shows that they built on top of Batman the Animated Series, it's like he just suddenly, you know, he had the opportunity to really make that character his own. But when you've got a film like this, in which there's multiple characters, it's harder, I think, to make that dent, to make an impact. And I think the impact tends to be felt more by, as I say, actors who don't quite make the cut. So yeah, I like, as I say, I like all the voice cast in this, but the one that sticks out for me is William Baldwin as Batman. And again, that's
I agree.
No offense to him. That's simply because we've just been spoiled by having Kevin Conroy.
100% agree with you. I also feel that one of the downfalls for all of these films is the fact that they are, you know, these direct-to-DVD films, yet they're so short. I never understood why they just can't go the extra mile and just give us an extra 20 minutes. I mean, we'll go into that a little bit more in just a few minutes. I know there's a lot of people that are excited for the next movie that we're going to discuss, but no, I personally think that this is a very well done, action-packed movie. I think that it would have been a very successful television season. I really think that if they were to have actually extended the series for one more season and gave us this little bridge between the 2 Justice League seasons, series as that matter, because I think that was something that fans were really curious about. And that's another thing that makes me just hate Warner Brothers so much. It's like, they give us so much, and then when we know we're supposed to get more, we don't get it. Thank God Young Justice is getting a 3rd season. Thank God. But
Could be worse. They could be 20th century.
So ready
Fox.
for that.
Yeah, that is true, Brian. I agree with you there. It could be Fox. Rupert Murdoch knows how to turn people's heads around. That's for sure. But no, I think that it would have been a very successful I think it would have been a very successful season if it ended up being a Justice League season. I mean, if I were to rank this, I mean, again, it's not the perfect film. I mean, I give my usual 4-star ranking. It's just a fun, action-packed movie, and it's got so much rewatchability. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 4 stars if I'm going to rank it.
Yeah, I mean, before I give my rating, I would just like to call out a few of the criticisms that I had along the way.
Go for it.
Like I say, it wasn't perfect. It's still up there. It's top tier for me as far as the DC animated movies go. This is top tier. It's not quite Wonder Woman level.
Oh no, it's not Wonder Woman level. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's top tier. So I mean, it's bizarre to me actually that Wonder Woman is the one, and this is, you know, that sounds like a sexist comment, but given comic book movie interpretation history, female characters don't tend to get their justice, deserved, so to speak. They don't get the justice that they require, and that Wonder Woman film. Yeah, that Wonder Woman film that was a 5-star for me, and it might actually be the only 5-star film in the DC animated movies for me personally. But I guess we'll see as we go through this series. Not to give away my grades for this show or anything, but yeah. So one of the things, and this is something that bugs me throughout the DC animated movies, not just here, which is, as much as I love Batman,
yeah, obviously,
I get a little bit tired of how, when Batman is put in this world of superheroes, like the likes of Superman and, Superwoman in this case. For example, he has a fight with Superwoman in this, and she drops a concrete column on him, right across his midriff, and I know it's animated, so that you can get away with things in animation where it's just, well, it looks cool, it looks action-packed, so we don't have to think about it. But that is a concrete column, marble, I think. It looks like a marble column. It is used for propping up buildings, and it's just been dropped on his chest. He ain't Superman. I don't give a toss how much armor he is wearing on that costume. He walks away minimum with about 5 broken ribs. But hey, it's Batman, so whatever. So that kind of stuff does bother me. As I'm not one of them Batman fans who just says, "Well, he's Batman, he can do it." It doesn't cut it for me. I just, and it's something that can be solved quite easily because you're animating this thing. Just control what you're animating. Think about what you're animating. Can Batman survive getting a big marble column dropped on him? No. So what do? We don't drop the column on him. Find some way of him dodging it. So it's just touches like that for me. They bring it down a peg. And there's also one. Where is it? Yeah, this may not be a criticism that lasts if one of you two can explain it to me, but it may just be confusion on my part. But at the beginning of the film, when we've got Joker and Lex Luthor running about, I'm sure that Lex goes into the sewer. I'm sure Joker lets him out into the sewer and he runs off, and that's how he gets out of the building.
Right.
And then Joker, literally a few seconds later, detonates his bomb, killing himself and a few of the guys that are after him. But when we see Lex outside the building and the bomb goes off, it's right at the top of the building. So it's like,
yeah, that's right.
So it doesn't make sense. And it's like, either I get that with films like this, you have different departments, and each department may animate a particular section. So things like that can happen when you're not communicating between departments. So communicate between departments.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't even think about that now that you're mentioning it.
I didn't either.
And now you're talking about the whole thing with the marble column. You're absolutely right. How does he survive a marble column being thrown on him, yet Bane puts him in a wheelchair just by snapping his back on his knee?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's things like that they're little niggles, and if it was just one little niggle, I just brush it aside. But when you have a few of them across the film, they add up to something, and it's what it adds up to is, I don't want to call it incompetence, but for the sake of lack of a better word, let's call it incompetence on the part of the filmmakers, which is that just put a bit more thought in, just check your script,
right?
Hire a better script supervisor and get your continuity sorted, and just think about what it is you're going to animate during a fight. Just need to plug myself in because my battery thing's just come up. Sorry about that. But yeah, so little things like that, they do bring this film down a little bit. Not a huge amount, but I do have to point them out because they are there. I think. Oh yeah. What? There was one more thing, and this was just like, it was more funny than anything else. And it's when Martian Manhunter and this really forced romance that he has with this woman,
right.
the daughter of the
Deathstroke's daughter. I remember that Slade Wilson is the president in this world, and he's an old good guy, and that's his daughter Rose.
So that Deathstroke's daughter, right? She has this romance, as I say, with Manhunter, and to me it feels a bit forced. But there's this moment when she wants a kiss, and I can't even remember how it gets to this point, but Martian Manhunter ends up giving her his entire life story, and it's because she just wants a kiss, and then he says, "This is how we do it on from where I come from," and he does this essentially this Vulcan mind meld or something, exactly. And ends up showing her, dude, this isn't even a first date, and you're giving her your entire life into her head. It's like, Steffi, on a minute.
I don't know what they do and how they do it on Mars. We don't know.
It's just like, my note just says, blimey, Manhunter. She wanted a kiss, not your life story. So
it's just, he's not the smoothest of people. He's not that good at the whole romance thing. I'm good at it. I don't think he ever will be.
No, I mean, it's so funny. You even watch the CW show Supergirl on television. He doesn't know how to interact with other people properly. Yeah, it's
just been here to learn by now.
I mean, it's like I still remember this little thing in Young Justice where he and a whole bunch of other heroes are going to be getting tried, like in another universe, and he goes to Miss Martian and he goes, "Oh, will you please make sure that my plants are watered?" I'm like, you're leaving your niece behind and all you care about are your plants? But you're absolutely right, Brian. I'm really glad that you brought those faults to us. I think that this is something that I think we all needed a good laugh today, especially because of what's coming up in the show. But anyway, so what would you rate this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so like with all those comments in mind, I'd still give this a 4 out of 5. For me, this is a really solid, like I say, top tier DC animated movie. Helped very much by the ending and by the fact that Batman takes a predominant position within the story. That's always going to get me excited. So yeah, 4 out of 5.
Okay, Melissa, you do a lot of Goodreads work, so if this was going to be on your Goodreads account, what would you give this rating?
A 4.5 stars, and then it's a lot of fun to watch, but it's definitely not I'm never as vested in this one as I am in some of the other films, which is what I usually go by as how engrossed I get into the story. Well, it's a really good one, and it has some amazing characters and fantastically done animations at many points in the film. It's not like the greatest films, but it's not top best.
Okay, so you did get a little choppy there. So you said somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. Just want to make sure everybody heard that. Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, but now let's get into the film that I think we've all been very, very excited to talk about, because we're approaching 30 of these films. Next year, if they keep going in the routine of just giving us 3 of these direct-to-DVD films a year, the first one in 2018 will be the 30th film. And I'm just going to tell you this one. Batman Under the Red Hood is still my number 1 in all of these animated films, because we have been getting Batman in the right way for almost 10 years now. I mean, we've had a very successful run with the Christopher Nolan trilogy. Love it or hate it, in my case, I love it. I think that Zack Snyder gave us an amazing new Batman in Batman v Superman. We now have the Lego Batman movie in theaters right now, for crying out loud, and they just announced that the director of The Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is going to be directing the Ben Affleck directed Batman movie, the one that he was supposed to direct, which I think was a great choice. That's my own personal opinion. But Batman Under the Red Hood, to me, is if I had to rank it, it is either number 1 or 2 in every single Batman movie that I have ever seen. It is so hard to put my love for this movie into words. But that's why we're here tonight, because I think we need to try and put our enjoyment of this movie into words. Hopefully all 3 of us feel similarly. But Melissa, I want to start off with you, because I let Brian start in the first one. I want your overall feelings of Batman Under the Red Hood, and then we'll get into the details after we all talk.
This is definitely my favorite out of the DC animated films as well. I freaking love this movie. I'm wearing my Nightwing hat right now. It just has all of my favorite elements of Batman. It has the Red Hood, which the Red Hood and the Outlaws comic book series is one of my absolute favorite comic book series. Of the Red Hood, I love Jason Todd. I adore Nightwing. He's my second favorite DC character, right after Constantine. So I just love this movie, and I love all the voice acting. Obviously, we have Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood, and then we have Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing, and it's just a lot of unique the voice acting, which I think work absolutely brilliantly. So I completely agree with you. I cannot just talk about my love for this enough, because it's just so good.
And I mean, Brian and I, whether we were talking live or whether we talked off the air just casually, Death in the Family is a Batman story that got brought up by the 2 of us a lot. And for me, this was when I found out that this movie was going to be the next one, I got a little skeptical, merely because of the fact that I was saying to myself, oh, I don't want Batman Under the Red Hood. I want Batman Death in the Family. This is the Batman story I want to see, especially because I am a huge fan of Robin. And I think that Bruce Timm and all the people that are on his team, they gave us the Robin that the true fans of comics know and appreciate. The fact that he is not as great as Burt Ward is as Robin in the original series, as the goofy and campiness. I mean, like, here's another tragic story of a child that lost his parents. Another person who lost his parents takes him in, trains him, turns him into someone who knows how to channel his anger into fighting crime and fighting for justice. The fact that he is Batman's crutch to keep him from going over the edge, which is what I really appreciate about Robin the most. But Death in the Family, the whole Jason Todd story was, ironically, the funniest part about the Jason Todd story is the fact that this was based on a vote. of comic book fans.
Mhm.
Like, DC asked the fans, do you want Jason Todd to live? Do you want Jason Todd to die? Because he was not Dick Grayson. He was a brash, hot-headed Robin that actually talked back to Batman. And that's an interesting thing. And when Death in the Family happened, it was like, oh my God, they actually did it. They killed him. And it's known as Batman's greatest failure. And now we have this new chapter, which I think was written in the comic books in 2005, 2006, somewhere in that realm. That was when Under the Red Hood was created. And I went in because, you know, like, it's a DC movie, I'm going to get it anyway, but wow. I was just, the acting, the story, the elements that true Batman fans can appreciate and see this next chapter of A Death in the Family, even getting the end of A Death in the Family in there was something that I thought was a real treat for the fans. I mean, I think they realized, you know, if we're not going to show the fans Death in the Family, let's at least give them the part of Death in the Family they want to see and let them see it from a different angle with the whole thing that Ra's al Ghul did. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but nah, it's so well done overall. And of course, we'll go into more details, but Brian's got to say his piece. He just has to.
Oh man, I have issues with this film.
Well, we're good. Look, so we'll take the good and we'll take the bad. That's what we're here for.
But, I like it a lot, and again, I'll say again, this is top tier stuff. Still not quite 5-star for me though. I still prefer Wonder Woman over this film. Again, I don't want to sound like a stuck record, but how much better would this film have been with Mark Hamill?
We'll talk about that. I have something to say about that later.
What a missed opportunity. What a missed opportunity. Because this film is so highly regarded amongst DC fans and amongst fans of the DC animated movies. And they brought Mark Hamill back for Dark Knight Returns. What a missed opportunity to not have him in this film. Man alive.
That's the Killing Joke, though, right? The Killing Joke? You said The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh,
Sorry, I
Killing
meant
Joke.
Killing Joke. Sorry, Killing Joke.
No problem. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, Killing Joke. I will say this though. I think out of all the people who have played Batman throughout these movies, after Kevin Conroy, my second choice is Bruce Greenwood.
Agree with you. 100%.
He does a fantastic job here. Does a fantastic job. There are even parts during this where he sounds a little bit like Kevin Conroy. And I don't think he's trying to copy Kevin Conroy. I just think he has a naturally gifted instinct as to where to go with this character. And he's a fantastic actor anyway. Bruce Greenwood's one of them guys who, when you see him in live action films, he always takes these kind of smaller roles, these side roles in films, but he always does something really great with them. I saw him,
character actor.
Yeah, he's a great character actor. I saw him recently in something. I can't even remember what it was, but he was doing a South African accent. And it sounded, I mean, I'm not South African. I'm sure South Africans would tell you whether it was good or not. But to me, it sounded good. It sounded spot on. He sounded excellent in it. But yeah, he's a great actor. But for anyone who hasn't seen 13 Days,
that's one of my favorite movies.
He
was amazing as JFK.
Yes, absolutely brilliant in it. A really good film. So yeah, as far as Batman's concerned, spot on. Now, a lot of people love John DiMaggio as the Joker in this. Not the baseball player, but the actor. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt by saying I personally think he's let down by the script. I think this film overall is scripted brilliantly when it comes to all the other characters. But I think the Joker is one of the hardest characters to get right from a script standpoint. When you get him right, he is both funny and scary. In this film, I found him scary at times never did I find him funny. None of his lines of dialogue made me laugh. And his delivery didn't make me laugh. Now, I thought his laugh, his Joker laugh, was perfect.
Yes.
It was almost up there with Mark Hamill. But the dialogue didn't work for me. And I think that could be down to the script. The script for the Joker, they didn't make any of his stuff funny. And for me, a perfect Joker, when you think of Heath Ledger, he was scary, but man, he was funny as well. I found myself laughing at him. You shouldn't, but you do. And the same with Jack Nicholson. He was scary at times, but he was always also a clown. He made you laugh. That's what. And same again with Mark Hamill. He can be scary, but he was always funny. And to me, that's the perfect Joker. You have to get both of those sides, and in this film, they don't. They only get one, and that's what lets this film down a little bit for me, personally.
Well, in regards to the voice acting, I mean, like, I agree with you 100%. Bruce Greenwood is an actor that I've been watching for so many years, and I always appreciated him in the movies. I mean, he played, like we said, he played the president in 13 Days of JFK, but he also played the president in National Treasure 2, which is such a great role for him. I love him in that movie with Nicolas Cage. And yeah, I like him because he's a great, you see, what I like about him is he's an excellent character actor. He really does portray characters very well. And you're absolutely right. When you hear him as Batman, you hear elements of Kevin Conroy. And I think even now in the New 52 movies that we're seeing, I think that Jason O'Mara, who is now voicing Batman, is taking a lot of Bruce Greenwood and a little bit of Kevin Conroy's voice style and bringing it to his version of Batman, which we'll discuss in a future video. But I disagree with you a little bit in regards to John DiMaggio, and the reason why is because I don't think in this story he is meant to be funny. I don't think we're supposed to be looking at him in this specific story as the funny Joker that we see, because here's a guy that killed a kid. He killed Robin. This guy is not someone that we're supposed to be laughing at. This is a murderer. And I thought that John DiMaggio, I was very curious to see. I think that there are still a couple of faults with his voice, and there are some of his jokes that I do find funny, but let's also be realistic here. The comedy in this movie from the villain side, that comes from Wade Williams' Black Mask. He is a riot in this movie. I love the Black Mask story, and Wade Williams has done a lot of voice work for the DC universe in the past, and I think that that's what we had. We technically had the Joker as a whole, but he was split into two characters between the Joker and the Black Mask. And the Joker was supposed to be featuring the scary element of the Joker, while Black Mask is supposed to be the comedic voicing of the Joker. Because I love those scenes where he just basically lets his rage out by just punching people in the face just because he wants to punch people in the face. I thought that that was funny. But the Joker does have a couple of funny moments where he basically says, I need some guys. Not these guys. They're kind of dead. Like, I thought that that was pretty funny.
I didn't like the delivery of it. I've got to say, it didn't make me laugh. It felt forced. Just picking up on your comment as well, just to retort to it.
Go for it.
Heath Ledger's Joker, man, he blows up a hospital. He kills Batman's girlfriend, a character that was carried over from the first film, someone that I personally was invested in. I know a lot of people weren't because they don't like Maggie Gyllenhaal, but that scene is really harsh, man. In The Dark Knight, he creates Two-Face, burns half of his body. He does absolutely despicable things in that film, but he's funny. You laugh at him, and so my response is, the perfect Joker for me. I don't care how nasty he gets. He should always be one of them people that you uncomfortably laugh at or laugh with. Someone that you shouldn't, but you just can't help it. And then all of a sudden, he can turn on a dime and do something that really makes you regret the fact that actually a few minutes before you did laugh at something he did. That to me is how you do a perfect Joker. And in this film, they just don't. Thankfully, everything else around it, everything that they do around it is really spot on. And like I say, the the side of the Joker we get in this film is still one side of the Joker. So we're still getting half of that. It's still recognizable as the Joker. It's just, for me, it's not quite there. It's not Mark Hamill.
Well, if I'm going to tease everybody just a little bit, I am dying to know your thoughts in the next episode when we discuss Michael Everson. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I want Melissa to take these next couple of actors, and we'll discuss it as a group. I want you to give us your thoughts on Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood, as well as Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing, because if there's one thing that I want to discuss with everybody in this room, it's that final climactic battle scene and the force that Jensen Ackles brings to the table with that scene.
Melissa,
are you still there?
is she frozen?
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think she's frozen.
No.
Yes,
Wait, we got you.
Am I gone? Am I back?
No, you're back. You're back. I hope you heard everything.
We're frozen, and I was worried I was frozen too, and I had no clue what was going on.
Okay. Do I need to repeat myself, or did you hear everything?
No, I could hear it. Your faces just weren't moving.
Excellent. Okay, take the floor. You've got it.
I obviously am a huge fan of Neil Patrick Harris, so we'll just start with him because musical theater and Nightwing, obviously. This movie is that there's not enough Nightwing in it, but that's just me loving Nightwing.
Agree with you.
Because I think Nightwing brought some humor to the role. Harris, and the way the script was written, made him a little more funny, than took away his whole bad boy vibe. In this film, I thought it was a different take on Nightwing that I really, really loved. So I definitely really, really enjoyed that aspect of Nightwing, and I thought Neil Patrick Harris did a great job. I think he's a really great voice for that sort of a character. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I really, really appreciated how Jensen Ackles' emotional take on Jason Todd, which sometimes, for me, Jason Todd, I love him to death, but he tends to go a little whiny, little bit grating, and I appreciated that Jensen Ackles didn't feel that way to me vocally. It just didn't come across as abrasive as sometimes it does with other voice actors, especially for young Jason Todd.
Right, she'll be back.
Sometimes I can't handle it.
You froze again, so I hope we didn't catch you. You froze one more time, so I didn't know what you were saying when you froze.
Sheesh, where was I at when I froze?
Well, you mentioned that, you appreciated the fact that he didn't get whiny. You appreciated that, and then we just didn't get the next piece.
Oh, I just said that I think it was a more emotional, more adult take, which is necessary for this. But I feel like sometimes voice actors tend to, with all the Robins, make them more childlike when, in all reality, Robin's a very dynamic and mature character. And I appreciated that Jensen Ackles brought that to the table.
Oh, well, another little tease. Now I'm really excited to talk about Stuart Allen as we get in further on with the movies, because there's an actor that I really want to talk about in the future. But no, I love that show. I like the fact that while Jason Todd was basically warped because of the story that takes place in this film, I appreciate the fact that he still had that connection with Bruce. Like, he still wanted to connect with him as a father figure, even though he was not doing good things, or he was taking Batman's work to the next level. And I agree with you on Neil Patrick Harris, because I think that they lacked it. There should have been more Nightwing. I think that Neil Patrick Harris delivered some of the funniest things, and I also feel that having Nightwing in the post-Death in the Family storyline was very crucial, because here's a guy that left Batman on bad tidings, And he now knows that Batman is hurting because of his loss. So the fact that he comes in and he tries to make things a little bit lighthearted, make him feel good, knowing that there's still people in this world that care about Batman. I think that that's a really nice thing. The bonds of family are very much there in a good way and a bad way throughout the movie, which I appreciate. And yeah, he delivers some of the best lines. I love that scene where he's having his cup of coffee and then he hears the engine rev and he goes, "Could you for once say, let's get in the car? Is that so hard?" Like, I just think that that's a funny line. I think that was just so well
done. Back away from your microphone, mate.
I'm sorry about that. I think that I would have loved. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I think we would have. The fact that was the first time we had an issue with the microphone's a very good thing. But no, I would.
You always know when Steve's getting really excited because the sound goes off because he starts going, "Whoa!"
That's called fandom and passionate enthusiasm, my friend. That's what it's all about. But no, I think that if we would have had him throughout the rest of the movie helping Batman track down the Red Hood and putting a stop to the Joker, I think it would have added a little bit more to the film. And again, I think that that's one of the faults of the movie, which is the runtime. This is a movie I would have loved to see more of. This is a movie that I was like, why didn't they put this on the big screen? This was a big screen feature for me. I would have loved to see this in a big budget movie theater or like an IMAX theater or something like that.
Yeah. I was just looking at my notes a few moments ago, and I like Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing. I wouldn't say he's the best Dick Grayson we've had, but I like him. I do. There are some times in this film when he says stuff that cracks me up, and then there are other times when I'm like, that's the dumbest thing that you could ever say. That line you just dropped, I did think was pretty funny when he's like, "For once, could you just say, let's get in the car?" But then there's like a few other lines, like where it's just after they've had the fight with Amazo, and they're questioning the three guys, and then Red Hood takes out the three guys, and Nightwing, forgetting, I think, just for a moment that he's with the greatest detective the world has ever known, says, "The shots came from the rooftops. A sniper." And you're just kind of like, oh, man.
Or like that line where he goes, "Lasers, he's got lasers."
Yeah. It's just like, did you really need to point out that it was a sniper on the rooftops?
Yeah.
One, I think Batman's on that, but I don't think any of the audience members watching really needed you to point that out then. But
I love when he says stuff like that, though, because in my mind, Nightwing is just a smartass all the time, and basically all he really cares about is being a smart aleck and getting laid. So that's kind of like the two ways of his personality.
No, I also
yeah.
I mean, I think another one of my favorite lines in that movie is when he goes to Batman, he goes, "You know what I miss about working the most with you? The toys." Like, I just like that line. I just think it's really funny.
That's that line actually is a bit of a pickup from something else that I at first was kind of a criticism for me, but then that line could almost explain away the criticism, which is that where is it? I need to find it now. But it's basically when I've lost it. I've totally lost it. There was oh no, that's not it. Where is it? Oh man, that's so annoying when that happens. Oh, it was the putty. That was it. I remembered what it was. It was the putty. Basically, it's when, again, it's the fight with Amazo, and Batman slaps the explosive putty into Amazo's eyes.
Oh yeah, the plastic.
And Nightwing's like, "I really don't think putty's going to help in this situation." And then like it goes off, and he's like, "Oh right, it's a bomb." It's like
Yeah.
when that happened, I was like, this dude worked with Batman for like what, 10 years or something? How does he not know what that is? But if you want to kind of explain that criticism away, then I guess the line that you just mentioned, which is one thing I miss about working with you, is the toys. Maybe this is something that Batman started using after he went away, but it's a bit of a loose thread there, really. For me, I feel personally that Nightwing shouldn't be asking what that stuff is. He should know. He's worked with Batman for long, you know.
So what did you guys think of the whole story that ties in here with the revitalizing of Jason, the revitalizing of Jason Todd's corpse, and having the whole Ra's al Ghul story, and more importantly, Jason Isaacs as Ra's al Ghul? Because personally, I'm going to be brief here. I think that Jason Isaacs, as a powerful force in film and voice acting as he is, very grossly underused in this movie. But the question really is, was he supposed to be a dominant force, or was he supposed to be just a small role? What do you guys think?
I'll let Melissa go first because I tend to just butt in and get going. So
No problem.
I've got something to say, but I'll.
For me, Ra's al Ghul was never the main focus of this story, even in the comic. I just think that he is sort of just meant to be this casual background character, as he is in much of the Batman lore. He just usually is like the shadow in the background. I think that the fact that they used him in that way in this film as well just really helped solidify his role. While it's not always the most obvious in the Batman universe, it's always there in some small aspect. He's always haunting Batman's every move. So I think was well done. I do think the voice actor is fantastic, so they could have thrown a couple more lines in, but from a storytelling standpoint, I think it was very well done.
Good.
I do think that some actors are better served as voice actors, whereas some are better when you can see them on screen. And I feel like Jason Isaacs, I love Jason Isaacs. I think he's fantastic. But in this film, I'm more inclined to agree that, yeah, I think I find it a bit underwhelming. I think if you put David Warner in this role, sorry to keep going back to the Batman animated series.
That's okay.
But David Warner was a perfect Ra's al Ghul, and I'm going to call him Ra's al Ghul because that's how they refer to him in the Batman the animated series. But yeah, David Warner had this. No. David Warner had this ability to be able to just speak in a very monotone voice, never kind of raising his voice or anything like that. Yet it was so filled with character and menace and history. And wisdom, and I don't feel like I get that from Jason Isaacs here. I feel like I get sympathy from Isaacs, but that's about it. There's not as much strength there as I feel you'd get from David Warner. And if you cast the Joker aside for one moment, I think there's an argument to be made for Ra's al Ghul possibly being Batman's greatest villain, most powerful villain. Whether he's people's favorites is neither here nor there, but certainly his most powerful, the one who could cause Batman the most trouble. Yeah, it's got to be Ra's al Ghul. He's practically a Bond villain. But yeah, so for me, don't make much of a dent. It doesn't ruin the film in any way, because like one of you pointed out, that's not really the main focus of the story. Ra's al Ghul in this is more a means of getting the rest of the story going. So yeah, don't really bother me, but stick David Warner in this role, and I think he could have done something more memorable with it.
I think based on that conversation, maybe to carry on these live shows, we definitely should dedicate some of these live shows to some of the other Brewston things. Maybe we should do our favorite voices for Batman villains at some point in time. I think that that would be fun just because of all the great people that they got to voice them and all that. But, well, you know, I think that this movie for me, I will still say this. To me, I agree with a lot of the imperfections that you both have brought to the table. I agree. But I still feel as a whole, this movie is just, there's just something about it that is just so fantastic. Maybe it's the climactic scene in the bathroom in that rusty old house, because just the line that Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood brings into it, the fact that he is just so passionately trying to figure out why Batman never killed the Joker, when he knows for a solid fact that Batman knows that the Joker is someone that does deserve death. Besides, I love the fact that he references, like, he said, like, I'm not talking about Riddler or Penguin or Dent. Like, he's saying Joker is the one that needs to die. Why did you not do that, especially after he killed me? Like, that's powerful. That's something that you don't see in an animated film. I mean, when I first saw this with a couple of friends, like, I wish that I could have given Jensen Ackles some kind of a film award, because those words in that scene is just so powerful, not to mention the battle that Batman and the Red Hood have with each other late before that whole dialogue moment actually happens. It's just, I guess that's why I love this movie so much, because it had so many elements that you never, ever saw. We saw the bar get raised, starting with Superman Doomsday. But I think with Red Hood, we really got something different and something truly special there. And that's why I would rate this movie a perfect score. I'd give this one a 4 out of 4. I really would. I still love it. I still rewatch it. It's just amazing.
The thing for me that resonates most with this film, and what I feel many of the DC animated movies actually suffer from not having, is the personal connection. So when you do eventually get to the final fight scene, often in the DC movies, I'm like, that's a great animation, really nice fight sequence, but so what? Whereas in this, because of that personal connection, because of this rich history between these two characters, and because ultimately you don't want to see these two guys at each other's throats, you want to see reconciliation, you want to see forgiveness. So to have these two fighting each other, it raises the stakes from an emotional standpoint. And that's what a film should always try and do. Whenever you have a fight scene in a movie, that fight scene is always going to be elevated when it is built upon something personal. And I like, one of my favorite fight scenes of all time in a movie is the first fight scene between Bane and Batman in The Dark Knight Rises, because they're not just slugging it out. Every bit of that fight reveals something about character, about the history of them, about where they are now in their life, you know. So it's not just a fight for the sake of fighting. And I feel like that's the same here. We get this really personal fight sequence at the end that is built on something of weight, which I don't feel we're going to get in the next movie that we're going to talk about. But
no, we'll get to that soon.
We'll get to that. Again, I don't think this film is flawless. I take on board what other people have said. I know Patrick Holmes in the comments has really, in the comments, he's been a real defender of the Joker in this film. I take on board your comments, Patrick, but for me personally, yeah, it's not my favorite take of the Joker. It's just the way it is. I've seen at least 3 takes on the Joker that have both made me laugh and scared me. And to me, that makes a perfect Joker. In this case, we don't get that. It's not a terrible Joker. It's just not what I personally want from my Joker. I do think there's few lines of dialogue throughout that seem a bit weird and unnecessary. No one's touched on it yet, but I thought the fight sequence between Batman, Red Hood, and the fearsome Hand of Four,
right,
was fantastic.
yeah, that was
really
a very
good
scene. Yeah.
Yeah, particularly the moment when Red Hood blows the guy's head off. He straps that thing to his head and just
love it.
blows his
Yeah,
head off.
they look like characters out of Batman Beyond. I mean, the reason why I didn't mention it, to me, I felt that fight was out of place. I just didn't get it. But I agree, it's a very well stylized fight sequence. It is.
Yes, to me, I felt personally that the fight with Amazo was more out of place. Like I get the reason for these guys being in it. You know, they're hitmen sent by Black Mask to stop Red Hood. It makes sense within the context of the story. Sticking a superpowered villain like Amazo in there, when you try and, the rest of this film is very much grounded in the Gotham City that we know, which is mainly human threats, not superpowered threats. So to have this scene, if you're not a huge comic book fan, if you're not big on comic book lore and stuff, you don't know who Amazo is, to just come to this film as that kind of person, I personally think that moment would take you out of it a bit, because for the most part, like I say, the rest of the film, you're grounded in a more realistic world. So to suddenly throw Amazo in there, that to me was a bit jarring. It was a nice fight, but it didn't quite work for me in the way that this fight did with these guys. That felt better to me, and obviously having Red Hood and Batman having to team up to stop them, again, it worked for me. It allowed some character dynamics to come out between those two. So yeah, like I made a ton of notes, for this film, and I just we don't have the time for me to go into them. I will say one more thing, and again, this is something that lets down the film. I sound like I'm being a proper party pooper with this film. I really do. Let me just tell you my score first, because it does sound like I'm being really down. I give this a 4.5 out of 5.
I had a feeling that it would be still ranked high.
Yeah. And it's because of that emotional connection. It's because of the personal stuff, the relationships, the investment you having these characters doesn't diminish despite the film's flaws. And for me, there are flaws in this film. And one of them is again, it's nothing major, but it's a little niggle. And it's just that I feel like the film's trying to be too clever when it has this story in which Red Hood does all this stuff with Black Mask. So in order to maneuver Black Mask into breaking the Joker out of Arkham so that he can then have a face-off with the Joker. Well, couple of problems with that. One, we've already seen Batman and Nightwing go into Arkham and talk to the Joker face to face. They've got in there. And if Batman and Nightwing can get in there and do it, then Jason Todd, Red Hood, can do it, because he was trained by Batman. He's done this stuff in the past before, So that to me was a bit, that whole element, for the sake of having this twist and this kind of manipulation that Red Hood was doing, felt a bit forced. Two, there was no way you could, out of all the villains that Black Mask could turn to, there is no way that you could anticipate that he would have gone to the Joker, especially given how insane the Joker is. It's like there are a dozen, Bane. If Black Mask has got his thinking head on, he wants to hire someone who's going to go after the Bat or go after Red Hood. Bane is a perfect choice. He's a mercenary, and certainly with the way he's been interpreted in the past few years, he's a mercenary for hire. And he's very powerful. So that element of the story, again, didn't quite work for me. But man alive, I would be lying if I did not say I didn't enjoy this movie. I would be lying if I didn't say I wasn't emotionally invested in the main thread that is going on, that I didn't love the interpretation of both Batman and the Red Hood in this. You know, that I didn't love the action sequences that were brilliantly choreographed, especially that final fight scene between Batman and Red Hood. I'd be lying if I didn't say I loved that I didn't love Black Mask. I love Black Mask in this. He's crazy as anything, and he, like you say, you know, he has some comedy in there, but without diminishing just how menacing he is as a character. So as much as I pointed all those criticisms out for the film, there is so much more to love about it. That yeah, 4 out of 5, 4.5, 4.5 out of 5 for me. Not quite Wonder Woman level good, but man alive, it's a breath away. So
Melissa,
yeah.
your rating.
I'm 5 out of 5 stars. It's my favorite out of the DC animated. I just love it so much. It has everything that I like. It has intense action sequences because I live for those. And it has some of my absolute favorite characters in the Batman universe. And I actually really enjoyed the Joker. He's not my favorite in this one, but this is probably going to make Brian like us on the ground, but I don't like Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Ooh.
And that's like an
Harsh
entirely different
words.
discussion, but yeah, I just want to toss that out there casually. But yes, I love this movie.
You do realize I have to, you do realize I have the power right now to stop this broadcast.
Well, we can't do that, man. Hey, listen, didn't I tell you we were going to get a different perspective with her in here? I told you something was going to come of this.
Oh man, how anyone could say they don't like Heath Ledger's Joker? Get out of the room.
Listen,
I don't hate it. I just don't love it.
I gotta tell you, there's a whole bunch of things, especially talking to other people over the past couple of years on YouTube, going into my 7th year. I am amazed by the plethora of things that I have heard. But you want to know what it means? It means that we are all free thinkers in this world, unlike my wonderful friend from the left. There I go. I finally get political somewhere in this live show, but it's just like we all have minds, we all have different ways of thought, and we all have to bring our ideas to the table, whether we agree with them or not, etc., etc. But anyway, all I'm hoping for is that if there is in fact going to be a Death in the Family film, because I know that there are rumors that they're planning on bringing that to us, I would really like them to use the voice cast that they had in this movie. I just think that this should really be like an official prequel. And it's funny that we mentioned that, because the next and final film that we're going to be discussing before we go into the showcase shorts, which will be a very short period of time to review, but we are talking about the very first sequel in this library. And it is the direct sequel to Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. This is Superman, Batman, Apocalypse. And this is definitely something that I'm excited to discuss with the both of you, merely because of the fact that we get some good things, but we get some not so good things in this one. But to me, overall, it's definitely not one of the strongest. I would still take Public Enemies over Apocalypse. I mean, I love the fact that the movie revolves around Supergirl, because ironically, this was, in the comic book lore, the very first major Supergirl story that we got since Crisis on Infinite Earths. So to actually see her come back into the fray and actually get her a brand new origin story is definitely a treat. And we also get Darkseid and Apocalypse, which is definitely something that as DCU and Bruce Timm fans we can all enjoy. But not the strongest movie, but I feel that it does have some positives and negatives, and I would like to go through those with you guys as we continue on. But we started with Melissa, the first with Under the Red Hood. So Brian, it's time for you. Just give me your overall thoughts before we go into the nitpicking.
Yeah, just one thing. Did you mean to say that you preferred Public Enemies over Apocalypse, or that you preferred Apocalypse?
I have more fun with Public Enemies than I do with Apocalypse. To me, it's just the comedy, but we'll go into further details. But yeah, I still think that one's a better movie next to Apocalypse.
No worries. Yeah. All right. I was quite upset this time watching it because when I first saw this film, for me it was top tier, like really top tier out of the DC animated movies. And I read a lot of criticism online afterwards, like IMDb boards and things like that. And I was like, what are people talking about? This is one of the best DC animated movies. I watched it this time. And man alive, there is so much kind of wrong with it. I will say this: it is, if you want to switch your brain off and just watch an action movie, a DC animated action movie, then this is the one to go for, I guess. But if you want to watch one in which the writers have paid attention to details and cared about story, this is probably not the one for you. Like I say, really disappointed because this was one of my favorites, and I hate it when you go back and you revisit something and
Yeah.
it turns out not to be how you previously thought. And I think the first time I watched it, I was just getting so high on the action scenes
Yeah.
that I was just like, take it along for the ride. And then like I say, when you come back to it with a critical head on it, you know, when you're doing a show like this and you purposefully sit down to think, right, what am I going to say about this film when I'm forced to talk about it? Suddenly, you start noticing cracks. And unfortunately, the cracks in this film, unlike Under the Red Hood, can't be solved with a real personal connection in the story and characters that you become so invested in because of this rich history, because it's just not there. I love the villain, Darkseid. I love the Furies. I love the action sequences in this. There's a fight scene between this woman. What's her name?
Barda.
Not Barta.
Are you referring to Artemis?
No. It's the one who goes up against the Furies and gets killed, basically.
Oh, right.
She's training to be, well, she's trying to, it's like a rite of passage, basically. But she gets killed, and that fight sequence is really well animated. And it's worth pointing out that Lauren Montgomery directed this one,
right.
And she's the one who's responsible for Wonder Woman, my personal favorite. And she also had a hand in the direction of the first film we discussed tonight, which was just Crisis on Two Earths.
Yes.
And I think she has a real skill with action, because of the films she's directed, I've noticed that they do have some of the best fight scenes in them. There's a certain sense of fluidity about her fight scenes, about the way she directs fight scenes. And that's definitely evident here. Some absolute cracking fight sequences in this film, but as I say, really let down by a script. Man, let me get into some of the problems. Let me have a look at. Just
there was actually something that I forgot to mention earlier about Batman Under the Red Hood. I forgot to mention that Bruce Greenwood was obviously noticed because he ended up voicing Batman in Young Justice, and I hope that he is still back for the third season. Just wanted to throw that out there. Just shows you how impactful his voice was. And we'll get into, well, we've got a lot to talk about in regards to the voices in Superman, Batman, Apocalypse, because a couple of our favorites have come back with a couple of new ones.
Yeah, like in this film, Batman can be a hard ass at times, you know, like he's known for being that, but he's not someone who chucks all logic out the window. And I feel like even for Batman, he's being a bit of a douche at times in this film. Like, the way that he's almost determined to prove Kara's motives as being impure. It's like he takes it to a next level of douchebaggery for me. Like I say, even for Batman.
He gets in the douche canoe and takes a ride.
Oh my god, I thought I was the only one that actually used that term. So glad to know there's another person that uses douche canoe. I love it. That is the highlight of my day, everybody, right now.
There's an awful, and this, again, I expect more from, given that this is directed by Lauren Montgomery, given that she did such an amazing job dealing with the battle of the sexes in Wonder Woman, which was like the big theme in that film. She did it in such a way that didn't disrespect either sex. It showed both strengths and weaknesses on both sides, male and female. And then in this film, we get that awful montage sequence in which Clark takes Kara shopping.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, oh man, it makes me cringe. Really, really does make me cringe.
Those are real dogs, are they?
Say that again. You disappeared a moment.
That's that line. Like, these aren't made of real dog, are they? Like, that's so freaking cheesy.
Man alive. It's just lazy. Really lazy. Like they could have done so much more with that scene to make some kind of social comment on the modern woman.
Right.
But instead they degenerate to what is just this awful kind of stereotype, and take that somewhere else, because it don't belong in this movie. Well, we had Lila. There's this character Lila who has these visions.
Yeah.
Now I'm like I say, I'm a Batman dude. I don't really know much about. Well, everything I know about Wonder Woman comes from that awesome Wonder Woman film that we've mentioned so many times already. So I don't know who Harbinger is. I don't know who Lila is. So at the beginning, her first scene we get, I see Kara sat on a bed having this vision. And it's this really random scene of Kara having this vision. I'm like, what is going on here? And then it goes away, and then eventually we come back and we get this second vision. I'm like, why is she having, oh, that's not Kara. It's someone else. Now I get it. So it's like, there wasn't really enough done there to distinguish what was going on. I feel for an audience that wasn't clued in to DC lore. Like I think they have to make these films. I don't think they have to pander to a non-DC audience, but I do think they have to consider the fact that, okay, even someone like me, who is reasonably clued up on DC, I'm specifically Batman, so I come to a film like this. You need to do a better job of explaining what is going on in this scene, especially when you've made the character design look so much like Kara. So if this was live action, we wouldn't have the same problem, because I'd be able to see that, oh, that's a different actress. But when it's animation, you've got a really slim blonde girl. It looks like Kara. You need to do more to distinguish between the two. So again, minor criticism.
This is entirely unrelated, but the voice actress for Lyra is the same voice actress as Artemis in this film. Entirely unrelated.
Who did it this time around? I don't remember who actually did it, because she was just so insignificant in the story.
But it's Rachel. I cannot say that last name. Quintance, but it's the same voice actress.
I know who she is.
Quintance. Okay, yeah. When I rewatched this, I was like, this sounds strangely like Artemis, who was just speaking. And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's the same lady. That's why. Okay.
Give me Rosario Dawson as Artemis any day of the week. She's so Wonder Woman. She was so funny.
Definitely.
Yeah, Rachel Quaintance is someone that I know. I've seen her in a couple of things.
Okay.
But okay, well, in regards to the voices, we got the Tim Daly and Kevin Conroy. They came back, and we got Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman again. I was really excited to see what she was going to bring to the table. We got Edward Asner back to play Granny Goodness, which I was really excited for because I loved Granny Goodness in the Superman animated series. I thought that was a great character. But we also got Summer Glau, another Firefly cast member, everybody, to voice Supergirl. And we
Yes.
also got and someone who I didn't really know about yet, but now I adore him. And that's Andre Braugher as Darkseid. I watch Andre Braugher on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he is flat out genius on that show.
Mhm.
He makes me laugh so much. So to actually know that this was him as Darkseid was definitely something interesting to see. For me personally, and I don't know if anyone would agree, I mean, we still haven't even gotten Melissa to say anything yet. I feel bad just making her sit there and just be an observer, but I can't deny the fact that Brian had to get off the chain because he definitely had something to say, and I appreciate it.
I ain't even finished, dude. But let's give
Well, we've got some time. We've got plenty of time, but I think that this may have been Kevin Conroy's most entertaining Batman, because I loved his one-liners in this movie. I think that he had some really hilarious one-liners. Like, my favorite part of the movie is when the three heroes go to see Big Barda, and she's like, I don't want to be a part of this. And then she says, I'm sorry to say this, guys, but only I know Apocalypse, so hopefully you'll get over it when I decide that I'm coming with you. And then she opens up the compartments. They all see the armory and Mr. Miracle's suit, and then Batman goes, I'm over it. What about you two? Like, I just think that's a great line. I think that's really funny. Or like that scene
again, though, it's like, would that line be as funny without Conroy? I don't think so.
No, only Conroy delivered. Conroy delivered it absolutely perfectly. Or like that scene where he said that Supergirl destroyed a piece of equipment, and he's like, and Tim Daly Superman goes, send me the bill, and then Batman goes, on a reporter's salary, not likely.
Yeah.
I mean, like, with all of the things that you mentioned, Brian, I can definitely see where you're coming from. And I feel that because of that, all of the other characters just don't really stand out. I mean, like, it's crazy to believe that this whole story really is revolving around Supergirl, yet Supergirl is really not a predominant force. It's everything around her that is connected to her. Like, it's all about the Amazonians taking her in to keep her safe. It's about Andre Braugher trying to Darkseid trying to grab her to brainwash her. Superman trying to keep her safe. Batman constantly doubting her. I mean, she barely has any room to be her own person. And maybe that's because that's the main focus of the story, trying to make Supergirl trying to be her own force, but she's not because everybody else is so concerned about her. And maybe that's what really takes away a little bit, because I really didn't find Summer Glau's performance really anything special. I feel that we didn't get enough Darkseid. I feel that, especially with Andre Braugher's voice, I feel that they could have had so much more to do with him. I love the action sequences with the Furies, although I don't even know if this is, maybe Melissa can answer this question. Is Guillotina real? Because I remember the other three, not Guillotina.
I honestly don't know. Honestly don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry, I can't help you out with that one.
I know you read a lot more of the comic books, because I remember the other three. Like, I remember Stampa, I remember Lashina, and the third one whose name I can never remember, but she's the crazy one. That's all I know her as. She's the crazy one. But no, I never remembered Guillotina. But I love but that's the other thing. Also, Julianne Grossman, who does voice Big Barda, also a very small role, but when she has her time to shine, she brings the heat. Like when she and Wonder Woman team up again, Wonder Woman I think has a very strong role to play in this movie, and I feel that when they were on Apocalypse fighting the female Furies, I think that that's the best part of the movie, because it's just the action, and that's also going back to Lauren Montgomery's directing. It's so fluid. The action sequences are perfect. So, Melissa, say something. I want you to get your piece in.
This is one that I'm just pretty neutral on. I don't love it. I don't hate it. The source material is not something that I'm a huge fan of. yet again, I'm very neutral on it, but I do think from solely an adaptation standpoint, this is a very accurate adaptation of, from what I can remember, it's been forever since I've read it, but it is an accurate adaptation, but I definitely think there's lots of problems with it, and I agree with all of Brian's arguments against it. It just has a lot of flaws that really, really bring it down, and especially after the two we talked about, which are, in my opinion, two of the better animated films, this one doesn't quite hold up.
Yeah, another thing that I really love about the movie is the animation, because ironically, since Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, we didn't have, the animation style based on the comic books, and we got Mark Silvestri's artwork brought into the fray. You want to know what was really scary? I didn't know that he passed away before I saw this movie. He unfortunately had an early death, unfortunately, which was horrible. But the fact that they gave his patented spaghetti string hair, which is what he's very well known for in the Witchblade comics, I think that they did a great job paying tribute to his illustration style in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Like I can't fault the animation. And this movie isn't a total washout.
No,
as much
absolutely
as
not.
It's still entertaining. If you just want to switch, like I say, if you want to switch your brain off, watch a lot of characters that you enjoy, and see some really good action sequences, then this is the one that I'll probably slip in. Two more things.
Go. This is your. We're on your channel, Brian. I give you permission to go.
Batman being involved in a fight with Doomsday. I let the marble column on him, falling on him, slide. You are asking far too much when you want me to believe that he's in a fight with Doomsday. I am sorry, but no. He doesn't even have the advantage that he has with Superman of getting the old kryptonite out. With Doomsday, he has nothing. I'm sorry, but Batman, you're out of that fight. You ain't involved in that fight. You're gone. As much as I love Batman, and as much as I think he's the most intelligent, Dark Knight detective in comic books and stuff, you ain't fighting Doomsday. Not on any level.
Well, technically, he didn't fight Doomsday. These are clones.
He gets involved a little bit. It's just he wouldn't touch that. Not a chance.
He knows his limits.
He knows his limits. Yeah, one Doomsday. If you've got Batman and Wonder Woman at your side, okay, you're going to get involved from a distance because you're Batman. You're not just going to leave. This is an army. This is an army of Doomsdays, who also, as it happens, seem to be a bit piss poor in this, because Superman goes up into the air, and why he didn't do this sooner, I might ask. Annihilates them all with his heat vision, something that, one, he would not be able to do, given that this is Doomsday, and two, why didn't he do that sooner?
Well, here's your answer. Here's your answer, Brian. It's the answer for every movie ever made. You know how many movies that I watch these days and say, you could have prevented this from happening just by doing this. Well, if you did that, then there wouldn't be a story. Plain and simple. I mean, it's like in everything. It's like, this villain is coming up. He's destroying the world. Well, why didn't you just put a bullet in his back? You could have easily done that. But you don't do that because then there's no story. There's no conflict. There's no character development.
And it's probably a rubbish film.
Yeah, probably. Probably, but that's my answer for you. It may not be the right answer, but that's
Mhm.
the way that I look at things these days.
So,
My
Being a film critic
theory
for 7 years.
about the Superman thing, about him not doing that, is the fact that Superman just likes a lot of attention, so he likes to wait till he's forced to be the hero. He just never learns that he'd probably be a lot more liked, he'd have a lot less problems if he just stopped trying to get attention all the time.
That's
A lot
one of
of
the few
beef with
things that I
Superman.
love. But that's one of the few things that I love so much about Bruce Timm and what he has done with Superman over the years. I love the fact that we now believe that he really isn't perfect. Like, he's not perfect. He's got so many faults. It's one of the main reasons why I hated Superman Returns so much, because they tried to go back to the Richard Donner, pure truth, justice in the American way, even go back to the Max Fleischer cartoons. Bruce Timm gave Superman layers. He gave him imperfections. He gave him villains that could kill him if they worked hard enough. And I appreciate that, where we actually look at him sometimes and we just say, dude, you're such an idiot. Like, I don't like that. We literally are now looking at our heroes, and there are points in time where we love them, and then there are points in time where we hate them. And I think that that's what makes them last.
yeah.
I mean, I'm still trying to find imperfections with Wonder Woman, though. That's just me, but
So you may recall I said two things.
yeah, I know.
One of them was Doomsday. The other, and this is just a throwaway thing, but I'd kind of had so many criticisms before this point that by the time I got to this point, I actually burst out laughing. I found it so hilarious.
Go for
And
it.
it's the point in which Superman punches fire. He's on Apocalypse, and this thing is spitting fire at him, and he literally punches fire.
Because he's
No.
Superman. He's Superman, he's just so great. He's so great. He punches fire. I have a lot of problems with Superman as a character.
I want to know. I want to know who was sat there animating Superman punching fire and not thinking, this is a really bad idea, because it was a really bad idea.
I feel like at this point, though, it was just such a bad idea that it ended up being great, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I was like, this is my favorite
bad
part.
It's good moments.
This is so good. I love this. He's just like, fire.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I feel like
yeah.
could have gone that way too. They could have been thinking that as well.
So then this is where I raise a question to you guys. What did you think of the last sequence in the movie? The whole event where Clark is about to introduce Kara to his parents, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's Darkseid. And for another 5 to 10 minutes, we have a whole action sequence where he's basically tearing the Kent farm to splinters. Honestly, I was surprised that it happened. But at that point in time, I was just saying, can we just end the movie already? Like, I'm done here, Was
The
it really
action
necessary?
lover in me was like eating it up. I was like, yes, yes, yes. But then the rest of me was like, nah, I'm done with this. Stop. Please stop.
Yeah.
I mean, if they would have just gotten home from Apocalypse and then had Superman give that speech, I introduce to you my cousin Supergirl, I would have been so satisfied. I thought that whole thing was just so pointless. I mean, is that even in the comic book? I don't even know.
Yeah, I've not read the comic book version of this, so.
I mean, yeah.
But I liked the action. Again,
Yes.
what Melissa said. It's that whole thing that if you come to this, switch your brain off, you can have some fun with it. It makes no sense as a sequence, and it doesn't achieve anything, because it kind of ends in a stalemate. And then when Superman gives Darkseid these threats at the end, you kind of sat there thinking they are such hollow threats, dude. It's like this guy just owned your ass, and
No, I feel that when it comes
it's
to
just
yeah, like when you see their battles on Superman the Animated Series and Justice League, like you get much more intensity with those two characters. I love those in the series. And I also think that one of the better moments with Batman is the fact that he actually outsmarts Darkseid. I love that too. I think that's great. You know, like he fights Doomsday, but he's smart enough not to fight Darkseid, but outwit him. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
It was
like, if I
an
was
unnecessary action scene. They
Yeah,
basically
and
didn't have
obviously.
enough to fill out the movie. So
And obviously, because of the fact that this is not really one of the most popular, they did not continue the story because this Batman Superman storyline does go further on. I mean, I know that there was supposed to be, I think the next story involves the Green Lantern Corps, but I don't think we're ever going to see that. Maybe they'll bring it back. I'm not sure. But if I'm going to rate this movie, this is definitely, it's still fun to watch. Like you said, turn your brain off, enjoy a fun action movie with some quips and some quirks. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 4, if anything.
This is going to surprise you, but
Okay, go for it.
I'd actually give it a higher rating than you just gave it.
All right, well, hey, that's what we're here for, free thinkers.
Oh no, sorry, yours is out of 4, isn't it?
Yeah, mine is 2.5 out of 4, so yours might be on par with mine, but yours is out of 5.
No, so mine is, yeah, mine's actually a bit lower because mine is a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
Just because, as I say, it's a fun movie, but that's about it.
Right.
It's fun, but don't come to it expecting depth and challenging kind of social commentary or anything. It's just it may seem bizarre that I've given it a good rating, given all the criticisms I've said. So I will just reel off a few things I do think are good about the film. I love the fact that we get to see the Batman Forever Batboat at the beginning.
Yes.
I do like, as I say, the way that it's animated. I think the action scenes are really spot on. Some of the characters I love, like Granny Goodness, and seeing the Furies in it and stuff, that always gets me quite excited. Some lines of dialogue which we've already pointed out, like the send me the bill on a reporter's salary. You must be joking. So yeah, there are some really good lines of dialogue. There's a moment when Kara calls Batman a grumpy ass, which I thought was hilarious. There's a nice moment in there where Kara sees Superman's statue and she's like, "Wow, this is how they see you," and she realizes the weight and the burden that is on Superman's shoulders. With the power that he has comes this burden of how humanity look at you, how they almost put you on this pedestal as a god, like, you know. So I like that. That was probably the weightiest moment in the entire film with regards to character development and things. Kara's fight scene with Artemis I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, so there is some good stuff in it. It's mostly the fight sequences that are good stuff, but yeah, some good lines of dialogue. So it is fun. I would recommend watching it, but given that it's just come off the back of the 2 films we discussed before it, yeah, not even close. So just about a 3 out of 5, I'd say.
All right, so pretty much in the middle, like myself. And I'm pretty certain that Melissa already said it earlier, but she pretty much said she was neutral. So you'd probably give it very similar, right?
Yeah.
All righty. Well, that wraps up the 3 films, and that means we've got the DC Showcase shorts, but this is not something that's going to take that much of a long time. We're not going to do any individual breakdowns or ratings or anything like that. What we're basically going to do is just explain what they are. Basically, like I said in the beginning, each of these 3 films had a short featuring a DC hero that does not have enough material to carry on its own full-length film or an animated series, etc. Although Arrow is on the CW in live action and running for 5 years. So why Green Arrow was actually one of these 3 characters that was featured before they made the 25-minute long short is not something that makes sense to me. But we got the showcase feature, which has a longer short, which is Superman Shazam, The Return of Black Adam. We get the returning voicing of oh God, I just forgot his first name. I know George Newborn, who was Superman in the Justice League series. We got Jerry O'Connell back to voice Shazam because he voiced Shazam in that one episode of JLU, which is one of my personal favorites, to cap off on the one-liners that Batman has in Superman Batman Apocalypse. He has one of those in the episode with Shazam. And basically, Superman and Batman are fighting a whole bunch of villains, and they're talking about how Shazam is joining the Justice League, and Superman's like, "What do you guys see in him?" And Batman says, "We like him. He's Sunny," and then he just punches another villain in the face. Like, I think that's really funny. But we also get Arnold Vosloo, who plays the Mummy in the Brendan Fraser Mummy films as Black Adam, who I was excited to see because Black Adam was a villain that we had not seen yet. And we also have the late James Garner, who plays the character that gives Shazam his powers. So, by and by, this is another one of those turn off your brain, have a good time shorts. You know, it's just a short film with tons of action and a small origin story to go with Billy Batson becoming Shazam or Captain Marvel, whichever you prefer. Personally, I have fun with it, but knowing a lot that I have seen in regards to Shazam, he's a character that is apparently just as popular as the main three most focused on superheroes in DC, and that's Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Alex Ross, who wrote who does the ink work for Kingdom Come and Marvels, he loves Shazam. Loves him because of the fact that he's a superhero whose powers are magic. I think that we could have had a movie, a 90-minute movie about Shazam. It's this short is fun. There's tons of action, but I feel that there is still so much more to Shazam that the average watcher doesn't know about, especially that they're planning on bringing Shazam to the DCEU films. Like, we got to know more about this guy. I enjoy it, but it's not perfect.
I agree with you. I love Shazam as a fan of the Young Justice TV series, which he was in quite a few episodes of that.
Yes,
I just think
he was.
Shazam is such a fun character and he's so underused. So I absolutely adored the Shazam short. I thought it was so much fun and I'm very excited to see what they do with him in the films. I hope they don't ruin him because I feel like he's a very easy character to make too cheesy. But I think that the short definitely captured the fun of Shazam without sacrificing all of his character development and what makes him special. I don't think it did total justice to him, but I do think it was a pretty good Shazam story.
Okay.
I haven't seen it because it's not been released over here.
Oh my goodness. How many of these didn't you get to see? I knew you said that Jonah Hex was something that you had to make you read.
Move back from your microphone, mate. You've disappeared.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, 3 times, not that. So which one of these did you get to see?
Right, I've seen The Spectre because that
Okay.
was released on one of the DVDs over here. I've seen the Green Arrow one because that's on YouTube, the proper version, not some dodgy version. And then I saw a dodgy version of Jonah Hex, which by all accounts is.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
here's one of the things that I think that really does a great job with all of these shorts. I love the color palettes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with Superman Shazam, I love the
Especially
look.
on Spectre.
Yes, and I love the color palette on
gorgeous.
Superman because I love how it's not the bright blue. Rather, it is like a dull grayish blue. I really like that look on him. Yeah, the color palette on the Spectre, I think that that's the most well animated because I love how it feels like a 1970s cop mystery. I love it with the chicken scratches on the film and getting Gary Cole to voice the Spectre. You couldn't have gotten someone to put that detective persona into a perfect formation than Gary Cole. He was wonderful in that movie, as well in that short, as well as Alyssa Milano as the villain in that was really, really good. Also, just a great job. I love that one's my personal favorite of all the shorts.
I love Gary Cole. He's someone who's from two TV shows from my childhood. Well, one from a childhood, one from a teenage years. In my childhood, it was Midnight Caller, and in my teenage years, there was a show that was cancelled after one season called American Gothic, which was
I know about
fantastic
that show.
show.
I know about that show. Gary Cole for me is Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. That's Gary Cole for me. I love him on that show.
So good. So good.
I strongly urge anyone to check out American Gothic. If you're into horror, then it's Sam Raimi produced it. It's a really good show.
Very nice.
Cut off in its prime. But let me ask you, both you guys, this, and go with Melissa first. You've seen all four of these shots, I took it?
Yes.
Right. Can you rank them for me? Put them in order of how you would rank them.
I think I put the Green Arrow one at the bottom simply because I'm just not the biggest fan of the Green Arrow as character. And I think while the short was good, it wasn't anything spectacular. It was stuff I already knew, stuff I was extremely familiar with already. Then I would think I would put the Shazam one because I had a lot of fun watching it. But yet again, it wasn't the perfect Shazam content I was looking for. And then I think I would put Jonah Hex because it was beautiful to look at and it was a lot of fun, but it wasn't to Spectre level, which I just love so much. I just love it for so many different reasons. It's visually pleasing. The story is fantastic. It felt very film noir, which I love. So that's definitely my favorite out of them.
Yeah, that I will agree with you. I would probably switch Jonah Hex and Superman Shazam, though, just because of the fact that I love Shazam, and I thought that the Black Adam character was very good as well. But the thing with Arrow is the fact that, with Green Arrow, it's an action-packed short. But again, like Green Arrow was such a driving force in the Justice League animated series. He's got his character has got his own live action show on the CW. Just a short with him just doesn't do this character justice. Like I would have taken, I would have maybe thought about the Demon. I would have probably thought about maybe Swamp Thing or something like that. Like, another character, or even Dr. Fate, a character that I know for a solid fact could not necessarily drive a series. Green Arrow can drive a series, especially if you stick Black Canary in there. And I mean, you had Merlin in the short, but it was very action-packed. And I thought that Ariel Winter playing the little princess was really, really cute. And it had some funny moments, but that's the way I feel about that one. Jonah Hex, I agree with you. The color palette is beautiful. It's dark browns and earth tones. It's got a very slow-paced Western feel. I mean, Brian, you're a fan of movies like Unforgiven, so if you love Westerns, this is something that really encapsulates the Western. And Thomas Jane voicing Jonah Hex was great, and Linda Hamilton as the villain, as well as she was the villainess. And we also had a very short-lived moment from Michelle Trachtenberg, but it really captures the Western and really pulls away from the supernatural. Like, you would look at this and you would not look at Jonah Hex as a superhero. You just look at or anything with supernatural powers. You look at him as a bounty hunter. That's who he is. But, he doesn't really carry a story much. You've seen him in Batman the Animated Series. He showed up in Justice League. Even on Legends of Tomorrow, he shows up a couple of times. But for a short, very good. Spectre, I've said my piece. The whole film noir, the style of filming and animation, and all of, at some point you get horror elements, which I think is really cool. Like, it's just got a lot of really cool stuff that that film and animation appreciators will just eat up with a spoon. So yeah, I think the Spectre is the best one of the four. I mean, there's a fifth one too, but to me, it's a little bit more relevant to another one of the films that we'll be discussing, but that's the way that I would rank them. Brian, I hope you get a chance to watch them. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen The Spectre and I've seen Green Arrow, and for me, I kind of put them on a par because I get something different from them. I think certainly Spectre is the one with much more atmosphere to it. I think seems to have a proper story, I guess. Although that's a little unfair to the Green Arrow one, but I just feel like the Green Arrow one's more of a puff piece. But it's a very enjoyable puff piece. It's a really well animated action kind of fest. There's a little fight sequence on this conveyor belt in the airport, and it's really well animated, like kind of spot on. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that film, and I loved the horror elements in Spectre when all those puppets come alive, the creations that guy's come up with, they all come alive. So yeah, I liked them both equally, really. Those two. From what I've seen of the Jonah Hex one, obviously I've seen a re-edit that's kind of been butchered from what I've heard. But from what I've seen of it, it does look like possibly that would be my number one choice out of them. I've not seen anything of the Shazam films, so I don't know.
And something I completely forgot to mention, in the Green Arrow short, you've got, ironically, Neil McDonough, who's on the Arrow show now as Damien Dark. He's Green Arrow, and Malcolm McDowell is Merlin. That's a great voice casting, but very underused. Like, they barely speak, you know?
Yeah.
Well, guys,
okay.
Yeah. Guys, I think we've officially done it. That wraps it up. I think we're all set. So, listen, and we're still very much on time. We had a little bit of a late start due to the technical difficulties, but we got done in just a little over 2 hours, which is great. Thank you guys again for joining me today. Melissa, I'm glad you were able to finally get on board. I hope you had fun, because we would love it.
I did. I had a lot of fun.
We really want you back for the third episode.
Yeah, I'll definitely.
Right.
I plan on being there unless
the only thing
something comes up.
Well, the only thing I'm nervous about is the fact that it's all going to depend on the release of Teen Titans: The Judas Contract. If it ends up being in April or May, I would like you to let me know that because you're probably going to be getting into finals mode, and I don't want this to interrupt your finals. So maybe let's cross our fingers, and maybe it'll happen and maybe the release will happen on spring break. I don't know. But we will definitely work around this, because I chose the both of you for these live shows for a reason. I really don't want to go to anybody else. I really want the both of you to stick around, just because while you guys, do your own thing on YouTube, you both bring true passion for these characters and these lores, which I want you guys to stick around for. And next time, we're going to be going over more than 3 films. We're going to be going over some really crucial ones in the lineage. In the library, we're going to be going over things like All-Star Superman. We're going to be going over Batman Year One, and we're going to be also we're tackling, just so everybody knows who's still watching, we're tackling the big project. We're doing The Dark Knight Returns next time, so I'm excited for that too. So, anybody have anything else to say? Closing statements, anything at all?
No, that's it. It's 1 o'clock over here. It's gone 1 o'clock, so I want to get to bed.
I totally agree with you there, man. All right, everybody, you can find Brian obviously here on Brian Lomax Movie Talk. You can find Melissa on The Bookish Babbler. You can find me on The Lawn Gnome. This video will be on everybody's respective channels. We'll tweet it out as well. And please, when you watch it, when you get around to it, leave comments in the box. We would all love to talk to you about some of these movies and, of course, these characters. So, everybody, thanks for watching. Melissa, Brian, thank you once again for joining me today. And I will make sure that my live show stuff works on my channel, so we don't have to deal with a little bit of a hiccup here. But in the meantime,
remember to shower your own pal. Keep it clean.
Yeah, anyway, guys, take care, everybody. Good night. Actions speak louder than words. We'll see you soon.
Goodbye.